where earthquake happened, India is seen as the first responder, and as a result, we are no longer seen as just a regional power. We seem to be appearing in global calculations on strategic relations. And then very quickly, the World Economic Forum, where Prime Minister went and spoke, there are details there. We have now become members of the MTCR, which is the Missile Technology Control Regime, which is a very important forum. We've become a member of the Vasenar group, through which our scientific things can be sold out. Weaponry can also sold out to other countries. So Vasenar, becoming a member of Vasenar is an important achievement, and becoming a member of the Australia group also has increased the stature of India. In 2014, May, was to set up the Special Investigation Team, which was as per a Supreme Court order. That order had come even in 2011. But the government then, between 11 and 14, did nothing about it because they were afraid what it will lead them to. But we came in, and the first promise which we had given, and therefore we did, was to set up the Special Investigation Team, which unearthed black money. And even today, the steps this government is taking towards identifying black money and holders is under the guidance of Supreme Court. Then demonetization, other things are also given there. 3 lakh shell companies have all been identified and action taken against them based on the black money and corruption eradication in this country. 3 lakh shell companies, don't miss out. Legislations were brought in, for which of course the struggle was much in the parliament, because you didn't have the parliament functioning. Opposition was only obstructing from working. The double taxation avoidance treaty was signed with Mauritius, from where it was suspected a lot of unaccounted wealth was coming back. What was called as round tripping was happening. From India, the unaccounted, untaxed money would go out, come through the route of Mauritius, was a fear. And as a result, with Mauritius government, a lot of goodwill prevailed. We had this double taxation avoidance agreement, which by the very name tells you either they have to pay tax here or pay tax there. They were avoiding it here, avoiding it there, and were earning windfall profit. And that money was going somewhere we didn't know. Now, because of this agreement, Mauritius, Cyprus, and Singapore have all the three have come across as wanting to work together with India in curbing corruption. Then you have a special agreement with Singapore, where they were willing to share data real time as to whose money is moving where, and based on which we can see if they've moved tax-paid money or moved non-tax-paid money. They can always move out with their money, but have they paid the due taxes or not? PMLA is another legislation. The black money, more important is the undisclosed foreign income assets, which is mentioned there. There's also one other thing called the fugitive legislation, wherein somebody who's done a fraud in this country and ran away to some other country and settled there, and from that country we are not able to get them back here to face the law, through that fugitive legislation which is brought by us, we will be able to confiscate all their property. Of course, we'll try to get them back to have them face law, but their monies can be now confiscated, and every person who has put money in that organization will get their monies back. So such legislation have all been brought by us. The next slide shows you the Benami Property Act, the Fugitive Economic Offenders Bill, about which I spoke, and financial institutions are also being refinanced so that they become better coming out of their NPA situation. The next one also will tell you about more of this. Finally, I go to the last section, with that I end, which will very clearly tell you about, move next. One very important achievement is in one launch, we had 104 satellites belonging to different countries, one of UAE, 90 of USA, one of Netherlands, and so on. The list is given there. Kazakhstan also had one. In one launch, for us to launch 104 satellites has made the world sit up and say, what's happening in India? How are they able to do this? Advancement in science is what has been talked about, space research, and also as a goodwill gesture, you will remember and recall Prime Minister brought all the South Asian countries and said, we'll launch your satellites. So you had at that time, when that launch happened for South Asia satellites, the Prime Minister of Afghanistan, Prime Minister of Bangladesh, all of them were on board with the PM that day when we launched the NAVIC, all the satellites which are for the South Asian region. And we are also the only country now, along with a few, who can have global navigation system because of the NAVIC IC that we brought in. The naval IC navigation system, not naval, navigation system in the space, which is going to give us a complete picture of our own space viewed pictures, which are very important for our security. With that, I've given you a picture of, just a broad picture of how the world sees India. Now I go to the next section, which relates to farmers. This is one section where, how much ever I talk, we won't be able to capture everything that has happened. There's extensive work to benefit our farmers. You know, in one line, by 2022, the farmers' income has to be doubled, is a goal that the Prime Minister has set for our country. I'll go to the slides, you'll see how many topics under the farmers itself has been covered. So you can move on agriculture, MSP. That is one thing which I want to just draw your attention. $1.5 times more than the production cost in the Kharif crop. 1.5% more, which is absolutely something which farmers wanted, so the government has readily agreed to do it. Then buffer stock on pulses. This is a point which I want to underline. You know, in this country, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was this massive problem. We didn't have enough dal. We didn't have enough pulses. Arar dal shortage, urad dal shortage, moong dal was hitting the roof. It was because, and it continues to be an issue, that we grow far lesser than what we want in pulses. Two-pronged approach was taken by the government. We ensured that more land was brought under cultivation for growing pulses, and at the same time gave special bonus, special incentives to farmers. Bonus was given, incentives separately was given, and prices were also marked up saying, we'll give you better MSP, grow more pulses. As a result, this time, we've had a huge buffer created of pulses. The output has been increased, and farmers are also getting good price for growing pulses. As a result, this year, no one is talking of, oh, increase in price in arhar dal, tuvar dal, urad dal. No dal is now a dispute. You are getting enough dal and also at affordable price. The way the gender ratio is being addressed, so you took care of the maternity, you ensuring that girl-child births are not affected. In many districts of India, not so much in the northeast, but in the rest of the parts of the country, you have gender disparity that's also being addressed. Now there's quite a lot of improvement in terms of gender ratio being maintained. The next one, again a very, very Prime Minister's very close to the heart kind of a scheme. Is this different?
No,
same as that. A scheme which is very close to the Prime Minister's heart, which is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, wherein people who were using locally collected twigs and wooden pieces to have food made in their house, sitting in a smoke-filled kitchen for 3 times a day whenever they went into the kitchen. And as a result, there was a comparison made, which probably is a rough comparison, don't hold me on the figures. Per day it was suggested that it was equivalent to 400 cigarettes being smoked. That is the level of smoke which was women absorbed by women in sitting in the kitchen, which was full of smoke if they used twigs or any other coal or anything. So it be very quickly, again a matter of transformation, not marginal change. We very quickly wanted to get more poor women covered under this scheme, and that is why you find 3.8 crore women have got LPG connections after this scheme was launched, which means you can imagine the extent of rapidity with which this scheme was launched and taken to the people. Target has been now enhanced to 8 crore women to be covered. So from 3.8 crore women who were covered, now we want to make sure it's doubled or slightly even more than doubled. As a result, a lot of satisfaction among women of that poorer strata who wouldn't have otherwise imagined getting a glass connection, because it means a lot of the agent reaching you, you getting the stove, you getting the connection. Is it possible? Because the first supply has been free and subsidized by the government. It is otherwise not possible for them to imagine. Next one. Then you're looking at skills again being given for women for different trades. These centers are set up. Priority here is given for scheduled girl child under the age of 12. Death penalty has been brought in, which was not the case earlier. This ordinance, which will go through the parliament again for raping girls under 16 years, the punishment has been increased from 10 years in jail to 20 years in jail. Other than these two provisions, the things which are not mentioned there are, all this will be time bound. It won't be something where the victim is running from pillar to post to prove that she's been raped and the victim is literally being harassed. No, all that is limited to a particular time. The punishment has to be given by the court within the due time. And similarly, special courts can also be set up under this ordinance. So they don't have to wait in the court which has other cases pending for years. This will be dealt with by special courts. So all this has been done in order that women are made to feel safe. And then of course social empowerment. You've heard this debate about triple talaq, and also the other thing about whilst it has been allowed in Islamic countries, India did not allow it. Now we've changed the rule to say single women can also go perform Hajj. Earlier they had to be accompanied by a male guardian. Now that rule, which is not new, we are not trying to do something out of the way. Many Islamic countries allow it, so India has also allowed it now. Women, single women can perform Hajj without a male companion. So that's been brought in. And of course the other thing in general, not just for Islamic women, passport rules have been amended so that single mothers don't have to worry about how they go about getting passport rights, because sometimes they don't need to disclose their husband's name, they're separated, they're single, they don't want to disclose. Such women had a troubled time to get passport. Now we've made it possible that they can also get it without much of a hindrance. Single mothers will be facilitated. So with that, broadly I've talked about women. I move to the next section, which is talking about social justice, where people with disabilities, people belonging to SC/ST communities being covered will be shown there. The next slide will show 95,000 crores is the budget allocation for the welfare of SCs and ST communities. A particular thing on which I want to spend a minute. We have promised that in India by 2022, every Indian should have a house of his own. And that is 2022 is mark the date. 2022 is this year, 75th year of India's independence. So the idea is, when India turns 75, free India turns 75, every Indian should have his or her own home. And for that sake, it's not a scheme which has just started. 1 crore houses are already built under this scheme. So the rapidity again and the scaling up again is something I want to draw your attention. 1 crore houses have been built, and hopefully by the time India turns 75, we will have given every Indian a house to live in. Then you have smart cities, about which quite a lot of things have been discussed. More than 2 lakh crores have been allocated so that India can have smart cities which manage their sewer better, electricity better, transport better, roads better, and security better. So it is not going to be something always a new city. Even existing brownfield cities can also become smart, because the emphasis is to bring them technologies which are going to help in making them better and smarter. And then move over to the rail track, road, I'll come back to talking about the site when I go to the last section, which is on the scales. But you can see the bar chart already showing you. If you're talking of road connection, look at what has been achieved then and now. If you're talking about telecom connection, what has been achieved then and now, and so on. The speed with which the connectivity, the bar chart explains to you the speed with which we are moving forward. The next one, railways similarly. What has been achieved before 2014, between 9 and 14, and what has been achieved in 14 till March 2018. 7,600 kilometers there, 9,528 kilometers here. So the difference between the rapidity with which rail track laying is happening will convey what the objective is. What does it say? Udan is the name, but how did it arrive? Ude Desh ka Aam Nagarik. So this whole scheme is making sure that common citizen will have affordable flying experience. Smaller towns which have had Second World War time airstrips are now being resurrected so that small aircrafts can come there. Small number of people can be connected from there to a metropolitan town. So if you have Guwahati, you should have connection to Kohima, Itanagar, to all other places, so that from there they go to Guwahati, from where they can take a larger flight and move out.
Since 1975, there is a earmarked bombing zone by Indian Air Force, but there is a village, there is a government school. The people are living with a lot of agonies. Will you kindly take action so that the Air Force bombing zone could be shifted? Because our people are suffering, yes.
What should be shifted?
Air Force bombing zone, it is within the periphery of the village, where about 3,000 local indigenous people live. This has been raised during the National Human Rights Commission came here. This has been raised before them too.
Actually, it is already authorized finance and the compensation has already been disbursed from the government of India. Now compensation has been given there.
Okay.
I have a question regarding the banking system in Arunachal Pradesh actually. You said about lot about technology being used and Jandan is now and it's a success story. But in case of Arunachal Pradesh, we have seen that places like in Chang Tazo, there is no bank. People have to come to the bank. They have to spend 400 rupees to reach the nearest branch there. So how do you will get benefited from that? First question. Second question is, last year we have seen several incidents of air crash, helicopter crash in Arunachal Pradesh. But people, the district administrations, district government and the paramilitary forces, army, Indian army, all faces trouble to detect the location here. So why don't your ministry and especially government of India make a mechanism that if situation arises such kind of, because as our accident today, if today the incident happens, it takes 3 days to detect where exactly the chopper crashed, so to find the location. So far as I know, there is no radar system, there is no monitoring system of the air in Arunachal Pradesh. So recently in November, I visited the Bumla in the China border. We can see a radar in the Bumla in the Chinese side from naked eye. But in case of Arunachal Pradesh, that is also hill region in China. But here we don't have any radar. So if you are saying that this Arunachal Pradesh is strategically very important for India, then what are the mechanisms you are going to adopt for Arunachal Pradesh? These are the questions. Thank you, ma'am.
On the issue of financial inclusion, it is not necessary in this day and age to have a brick and mortar branch available in every village. It is possible through banking mitras who are friends of the bank, who go with a handheld instrument to the concerned villages and do what they require in terms of banking. Now, if the banking mitra of that area is not active, we'd like to know, because the provision has been made that for villages or hamlets or settlements which are beyond a certain limit, if there is no brick and mortar branch in that area, the village mitra will definitely cover them and extend every banking facility to them. And that is how, in fact, Jandan accounts were opened in villages where there were no branches at all. That service has to continue. So I don't see the absence of a brick and mortar bank as a deterrent On the contrary, of course, we have to make sure that the business manager or the friend, banking mitra, reaches the villages. So if you give me the details of those villages, I'll ensure the banking secretary is informed of it. That's the first one. Second, this is not the first time I'm coming as Defence Minister to Arunachal Pradesh. And not just to Arunachal Pradesh, to some other parts of Northeast, which also have some link, like Tezpur, the airbase, has certain link with Northeast and also with, particularly with Arunachal Pradesh. So the point that you're raising about coverage, radar coverage, has been raised. It'll be easy for me to get into the detail, but I do not want to get into the details because it has border implications. But those concerns are being addressed.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, my name is Amar Sanno. I'm sub-editor with Arunachal Times. I have a question for you. You've been to Tawang. You might have heard about the village called Bomja. On 19 February 2008, that village becomes one of the richest villages in Asia. A similar issue we have in East Kaming district. Indian Army had identified land in certain villages, a village called Kakukau, Rang, Tagrung Yangje and Bana, an area of 1,100 acres in 2009. But so far, the army didn't process the land acquisition process, and the land compensation is yet pending. So, being a defense minister, do you have any how to expedite these matters? The land compensation amount that district administration prepared was 90 crores, 57 lakhs, 88,359, but it's yet pending. So, would you like to expedite this matter?
I want you to understand one thing about the land acquisition in Arunachal Pradesh for defense purposes. They have been repeated, and this is not the first time I'm talking. I've talked in front of the Chief Minister. The Chief Minister is seized of the matter. He's also looking into various such issues where earlier there was one method through which land was acquired. Then there was this issue of land being community owned and not individual owned. Then there's this issue of local district magistrates also having to work with state government to see how best that can be sorted out, where individuals cannot sell their land unless the community ownership is issue sorted out much before that land can be acquired. Then there's an issue of several pieces of land which were identified for acquiring, but people said, no, our grazing rights would be lost. What do we want to do about it? Then the defense came up with an alternative solution saying, when we come for practicing, let us say shooting, because it's a shooting range, we'll tell you in advance, only those few days you don't use it for grazing, but later if you can come, you use it throughout the year, we have no problem. So there are various models of working together with people so that their livelihoods are not adversely affected. Procuring land alone is not a methodology. We can still allow people to do their annual agricultural activity or herding their cattle activity, using that as a grazing land activity. But yet, because there are certain typical things about altitude, high range and so on, which the army needs for practicing, they can come and use it. Pay some money for the government and so on. So different methods are being used for different pieces of lands. Not everything come under the same thing of give us the money and get away from here. We are working it out with the state government. The Chief Minister is fully seized of the various ways in which we have to handle it.
Just to add a point here, because those identified land have been prohibited to cultivate by the district administration since 2009. So villagers are not cultivating this land. So
no, that's fine. You're talking about 2009. Post that in 2013, Land Acquisition Act has been passed. Many people now say, do you want to follow that act, which if it's an act of the parliament, I have to obey it. And if I have to obey it, even though it has been pending from 2009, I have to say what I have to do under this act, which the state government will also understand and implement and tell me, look, you want this piece of land, you have to do this as per that act. And only on their saying will I be able to do it. So pending from 2009, yes, I agree. But it's not my fault that 2013 there was a different Qanun which was brought in.
Yeah, ma'am, I have a small question. In fact, there are reports about mining activities being carried out by China near Arunachal border. What is your government stand on it?
That is not in our territory, I think. I don't know. I'll have to get the details. Even I've seen the report only in the media. Based on that, I don't want to comment.
Ma'am, this is Mintu Tamli from Pratidin Time. I have one question. Chinese are objecting to pilgrims from India in Mansarovar. Have you taken up the issue?
Well, Ministry of External Affairs deals with this subject, so they will be able to answer this better.